So I'm going to set my timer because I'm known to speak too much and too long, and I know that's probably scaring a lot of you right now. You know, in the documentary films that I make, let me just set the timer. You know, in the interviews that I'm supposed to be conducting with people that I'm filming, they're supposed to last maybe an hour, 2 hours, and they end up lasting about 4 to 5 hours, and 3 to 4 of those hours is me speaking. To the point where my colleagues are looking at me during the interviews, going, end it, it's done, just move along. So what I'm going to need from the people in the front here, because even though I've set the timer, it does not mean that I'm actually going to be adhering to that, because I get very carried away and I feel very passionately about some of the things that I'm going to talk about today. So all of you, feel free when you're sick of it to go, end it, done, Deeyah, move along. So I would like to thank President Pelton. I would like to thank the Board of Trustees, and Shaughnessy, faculty, staff, and most of all, you and your wonderful family and friends who are here with you today. And actually, I should also say Happy Mother's Day to all the wonderful mothers, proud mothers. Exactly. And also I should say that the reason I'm setting the timer and the reason I'm asking for your help to do this is I actually brought along a speech that I was going to do today. But last night when I arrived from London, I decided, after meeting some of your students, fellow students, and also colleagues at the university, I decided I'm just going to speak with you rather than read to you. So about 10 years ago, I found myself in a flat in Atlanta, absolutely broken, absolutely devastated, absolutely lost. I had lost my career, I had lost myself, I had lost my ambition, my hopes for the future, and I'd lost the feeling that I can do something in my own life, that I can own my own life and my own future. And the reason that I got to that point is, I want to just briefly tell you a little bit about my background and my life. I was born and raised in Oslo, in Norway. I'm the daughter, as the president said, of immigrant parents. My father is from Pakistan, my mother is Afghan. My father was a very eccentric man, a wonderful man, a brilliant man, but also a very strict man. He had huge dreams for his children because he wasn't able to fulfill his dreams for himself. And he had it in his mind that the only way for his children to achieve anything in life would be to accomplish something within the arts. And one of the ways that he sort of asserted this was when I was about 7 years old. He took me by the hand and walked me around our tiny flat in Oslo and picked up all my toys, all my dolls, everything that I loved. And he had a garbage bag, a black garbage bag in the other hand, and he kept putting all of my toys into that. And then he walked outside into the hallway, holding me by the other hand, and he said, and went to the garbage chute, and he said, wave bye-bye. And I was going, what do you mean wave bye-bye? He said, just say bye-bye. So I didn't. He threw it all away, threw all my toys away, and the very next day, he started my music training. So I had the great privilege and honor of training with some of the greatest maestros of Pakistan and India. But of course, you know, being a 7-year-old, that's not necessarily what you want to be doing. You want to be playing, you want to be living your life. But he believed that the only way where I could be judged by my talent and by my hard work would be the arts. And that any other way I would be judged based on my skin color, based on my gender, and that I would never be able to escape discrimination otherwise. You know, most people when I was growing up were fans of Michael Jackson, and my father was a fan of Joe Jackson, who's the father. So that should tell you something. So, his plans for me did pan out. I did have a successful career. I became the first multicultural music artist in Norway. Things were going very well. But then something happened that my father didn't expect, I didn't expect, nobody really expected. And what it was is traditional and conservative, or I should say fundamentalist factions within my father's community in Norway, within the Muslim community in Norway, were objecting to the fact that I was doing music. In their eyes, a young woman of my background doing music was considered immoral and wrong. And they wanted me to stop, and they wanted me to be the obedient girl and go back into the box that was already created for me. The threats that I got, the harassment that I got, were endless. I was attacked at my own concerts. People pulled knives on me in the streets of Oslo. People tried to abduct me from my own school. And my family became completely isolated from the rest of the community. And as a result of this, when I was about 17 years old, my mother sat me down at the kitchen table and said, look, we can no longer protect you. We can no longer keep you safe. Do you understand that? And I said, yes, I do. And she said, so you're going to have to go. So at the age of 17, I packed my bags. I went to the UK. But I still remained loyal to my father's upbringing and to my father's dream. So I continued with music, but very soon, even though it was a different country, the same happened. The same threats followed me there as well. And this time, I packed my bags and I went to Atlanta. And I wanted to disappear. I wanted to hide, and I wanted to be left in peace. So this is how I find myself in that flat in Atlanta, staring at a wall, not knowing what to do, having lost absolutely everything. You have to understand, I sacrificed my childhood, my teenage years, my everything up until that point. I was in my 30s at this juncture. And for a dream that wasn't even mine. And to realize that your identity, your sense of self, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you have no idea who you are. You have no idea what you're supposed to do and what matters to you. You have no idea what moves you, what you love, what you want, what you desire. And with no hope, I sat around like that for a couple of years in complete darkness. But that eventually forced me to have an honest conversation with myself and to recognize that even though my own dreams and what I had the potential to become was sort of suffocated at a very early age by all these different people. In some ways, although my experiences are very specific, I think we all experience in different parts of our lives that suffocation of not getting to be who we really want to be, not getting to be who we really are, and feeling as if though we have to fit in to certain boxes, as if we have to meet certain expectations, as if we have to fulfill the dreams of someone else. So after 2 years of sitting around and literally staring at walls, I finally decided that I'm going to follow my own heart and that I'm going to make the choice of no longer being afraid. I'm going to make a choice to no longer run, and that I'm going to make a choice to try and be as truthful to myself as I can be. And in that process, I decided that the form, the creative expression that would allow me the most amount of elbow room to be who I want to be, and to ask the questions that I want to ask, and to create the work that I would like to create, that would be documentary films. Now, you have to understand, I had never made a film in my whole life. And also because my life was derailed at the age of 17, I never got to graduate. So to stand here in front of you today and to be sharing this day is tremendously special for me. And I realized that I wanted to create this work, but I also wanted to create it with intention. I didn't just want to be an artist, but I also needed to decide and find my own voice and figure out who am I, what matters to me, Because that, as creative people, you know this, as creative people, it's not just about the mechanics of creativity. It's not just the mechanics of our craft. It's also what you actually want to say, what actually matters to you, and your own integrity as a human being, and how you want to show up to life. And I decided I wanted to show up to my life by having difficult conversations and by confronting my own fears. So the very first film that I made was, as President said, was about a young Kurdish woman in London who was killed by her own family because she left an abusive marriage and fell in love with somebody that she chose. Again, somebody who was not allowed to fulfill her life and her dreams and her potential. And this film took about 4 years to make. Never touched the camera before that, never edited, no clue whatsoever. And when I said to people that this is what I'm going to do, they said, "You're absolutely crazy. It doesn't work like this, Deeyah. You can't think that you can wake up one morning and go, yes, I think I'm going to be a filmmaker. Yeah, I think I'll do that." It doesn't work like that. But I didn't care. I did not care. And this is the film that ended up winning an Emmy. It ended up winning a Peabody Award, and it was nominated for a whole host of other awards. And to me, that's not the important part. To me, the important part is the liberation that I found in following my own heart and staying true to listening to me, not listening to the industry, not listening to people around me, not listening to the conventions of this is how things are done. This is what you're supposed to do if you are to reach this or that level. But just going with your instincts, just going with your gut and creating for the sake of creating. Creating because it is who you are and because it is something that you want to contribute to the wider public discourse. So after that, I decided to take on my worst fears and confront that, which was to try and sit face to face with the kinds of men who had destroyed my life. So I sought out terrorists, Muslim extremists, men who had recruited young people to go and fight violent jihad. And I wanted to sit with them and try and understand, not to have a fight, not to have a hostile exchange, but to sit with them and try and understand what makes them the people that they are. Why are they the people they are today? And my creative decision at that point was that I am going to operate out of empathy with the people who have, with the kinds of people who have completely ruined my existence until that point. I am not going to go in with a combative stance. And what was extraordinary, actually a friend of mine, he's coined this phrase where he says, weaponizing empathy. And that is what I did. I decided that no matter what happens, no matter what they say, no matter what they come at me with, I will not let go of empathy. And empathy does not mean sympathy. It doesn't mean agreeing with these types of opinions and that type of worldview, but it means that just because they may have lost their humanity does not mean that I should lose mine as well. So as a result of this, I noticed that their guards went down when they sat with me. I noticed that even though we disagreed with each other on a lot of things, we were able to see each other as human beings, and we were able to get closer to what makes them tick. And what I found, honestly, actually surprised me, the fact that they did come from a place of a lot of pain. They did come from a place of having faced a lot of discrimination, a lot of hurt, and a lot of suffering in their life. But unlike us, they had no platform and no channel to pour those feelings into, other than towards violence. And that was extraordinary for me to learn. So once I did that, I decided, okay, I think I'm getting closer to understanding what these types of men, these types of extremists are driven by. And then I wanted to turn my attention to the other form of extremists. So last year, I spent most of my time traveling around America, and I spent a lot of time filming with the largest neo-Nazi group in this country and with white supremacists. I also found myself at the now infamous Charlottesville rally. marching in with Nazis, mind you. I'm so used to being on the counter-protest side. So walking in with them was quite extraordinary. And again, my approach to them and to the whole film was, is there a way for us as enemies to sit down and listen? And is it possible for us to hold on to our humanity, even though we disagree, even though we vehemently oppose each other politically and in terms of our worldviews? And it was not possible at times. And I can't lie, I mean, it was quite scary. I did find myself in places where people were armed and people, would get this close to me and pull out guns and say all kinds of stuff. And, are you an effing Muslim? Are you this? Are you an effing terrorist? Having said that, two of the men that I spent time with, a lot of time with actually, have actually, since that film, they've left the movement. And one of the men, when I was filming with him, he was driving around Jewish neighborhoods in Florida and throwing out hateful flyers. And I remember, trying to say to him, you just don't do this. Just, please, please do not do this. There's children in these homes. And he just did not care. And he used the N-word like I've never heard used before. And he called me about a week and a half ago. And he said, look, I've not just left the movement, but I've also left the ideology. And I've joined an all-black church, which is just surreal to me that that's what's happened. But I don't think that my encounter with them is the entire reason why they left, but I think for people to be exposed to the other is really important. And the entire purpose of the work that I do is to try and create tiny possibilities, tiny windows where we may be able to see ourselves in each other, where maybe we can recognize ourselves in the other, whoever the other is. And maybe in that moment, something different can become possible. My intention of creating my work is not awards. It's not a television executive said to me, you really do this and do that, and you should really change your approach and blah, 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 because it'll be really good for your career. And I remember leaning in and grabbing her hand and saying, look, you're misunderstanding me for somebody who's looking for a career. For me, saying the things that need to be said and asking the questions that need to be asked and telling the stories that I feel deeply passionately about is far more important than some sort of a career ladder. I would rather eat every other day than compromise, than trying to fit into the boxes that people have defined for us. And this film ended up also becoming nominated for the British Academy Awards. In fact, the ceremony is right now. So right now I'm winning or losing. But I would rather be with you. I would rather be with you. And I'll tell you why I would rather be with you. Is because I would like for you to understand, I hope for you to understand the power that you have. You might feel afraid, you might feel worried and stressed about what's next and how is your life going to pan out. And what I can tell you is, don't worry too hard. Don't be so hard on yourself. Whatever best laid plans that you might put in front of you, it's not going to happen like that. It really isn't. And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. Allow yourself to be you. Allow yourself the space to make mistakes. Allow yourself to fail, because you will. Allow yourself disappointment. Allow yourself, to me, I think, one of the biggest missions that we have in life is to try to get beyond that suffocation that I was talking about, beyond that suffocation of trying so hard to do what everyone else thinks that you should do. There are many ways to reach the goals that you have. You know, if I can win an Emmy, if I can do the things that I've done with no formal education, with no experience, really, I can only imagine what you can do. And I want you to know that your voice matters. I want you to know that your creativity matters, and not only matters, but is desperately needed. In the times that we're living in right now, we need creative resistance. We need you to deploy your imagination. We need you to be able, you know, as artists, we operate within the realm of imagination, within the realm of being able to think out and envision something that may not exist today, but might tomorrow. And that skill set doesn't just apply to our creative work. It also applies to life. It applies to our world. It applies to our communities and our future. So you have the skill set to imagine a different future. And you also have the creative tools to be able to manifest that imagination into something that's different. You are so important, and I want you to understand that you really, really are. You are the future. You are the generation that I believe many of us have been waiting for. You have the skill set to do the right thing. You can resist. You can do better. And the thing is, it's not easy, but that's okay. And even if you get afraid, just do it anyway. Really, you should. So I've been thinking a lot about, you know, what are the different things that I would like you to know. And the most important thing, I think, is I want you to know that you have a lot of power and that you also have responsibility. And also, you know, it sounds very grand and kind of daunting. You should change the world. It's your responsibility, blah, blah. I get how that sounds. But, you know, change happens with small gestures. Change happens with you just showing up and telling your story, or you telling the story that you want to tell, but to tell it in your own way. Putting up a mirror to this society, being truth tellers, daring to be yourself, making it okay to be whoever you are, making that the trend and not limiting yourself. So I'm not here to sell you some idealistic dream, even though I am just chronically hopeful. But I just want you to know there's a lot of people that believe in you. You have the skill set. You have the tools. You are brilliant. You are so talented. And to see so many women in this room, young women, makes me happy. It makes me very happy. So change is coming, and the politics of this country is what it is because it's a last stand. They know they're losing. The old way is losing. It really is. But that doesn't mean that they aren't going to hold on for dear life and make this battle very, very unpleasant. But my hope is you. And it's not just my hope. There's a lot of people who are rooting for you. There's a lot of people who believe in you. Just know that you actually can do it, but make sure that you take good care of yourself. Make sure that you follow your own heart. Make sure that you never let go of your own integrity, no matter what happens. And make sure that you have fun. Make sure that you have fun along the way and enjoy it and love it. Love, love, love what you do. For me, you know, when I was sitting in Atlanta in my darkest times, I never could have imagined that I was going to become a filmmaker, that I was going to own my own production company, that I was going to start a magazine, that I was going to be working with UNESCO, that I was even going to be standing here speaking to incredibly accomplished and brilliant young people like you. But, you know, life, the script of life is not written. And that's a good thing. Allow yourself the breathing room to let life just happen. So my wish for you is to go out there, just be you, and know that just you are enough, and work very, very hard. And it won't feel like hard work if you desperately love it. Don't compromise, look out for each other, be good to each other and to yourself, and be true and respectful to your craft. So I am expecting some of you to be doing this right now. And you know, don't forget compassion. Don't forget allowing space for dialogue and conversation with people that you dislike, people that you disagree with. That's the job of an artist. The job of an artist is to be on the vanguard of making conversations possible. You are supposed to get to the heart of people. So do that. Thank you.